designed to encourage, empower, and educate real estate professionals by sharing best practices from business leaders that are proven winners. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and this is Calibrate Real Estate. Broadcasting from the Mile High City. Thank you for tuning in to the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and for our podcast producer, Kayla Davis, I would like to welcome you to episode 87. We are knocking on the doorstep of episode 100, which is going to be amazing. We have a very special guest coming up for episode 100. For those of you that can do math, that's going to be happening here in 2019 because we've got 13 episodes left and we have more weeks than 13 weeks in the rest of the year. So I would just say stay tuned for episode 100. Now, without further ado, episode 87. This is recorded content from a deal that I did this week. It was a speaking engagement that I was invited to this past week that was at Keller Williams DTC. For those of you that aren't familiar with Keller Williams DTC, it is owned by a very good friend of mine named Pam Kiker. It is run, her CEO, because Pam, for those of you in the Keller Williams organization, is a level 7. So she's level 7, which means that she is operating still a brokerage business and a brokerage team, but she has hired a CEO and is completely out of the operations of the business. Tony Carnesi. Tony is going to be featured and actually is the MC of this top producer panel that you're going to be listening in on. I was involved in the top producer panel along with several other folks. And so let me give you the introductions for the top producer panel, okay? So Tony Carnesi is the MC and the chief question asker. We had Parker Loveless from Kentwood Real Estate and Corey Martin from Keller Williams. Special shout out to Elaine Stussy. Elaine Stussy is with Liv Sotheby's and was not able to attend, but she was invited and she was supposed to be on the panel. So enjoy, as for once, I've become pretty much a professional question asker, as I am now getting the questions asked of me because I operate a brokerage firm. I operate my own brokerage team and in the deals that we work on. So I'm very much a practitioner. I'm very much in the trenches, just like you are as a real estate professional. So enjoy as Tony asks all of us questions on how we approach our business. Now, before we get into that, if you haven't downloaded our past couple of episodes, Rick Miller, episode 86, Ryan Gillen, episode 85, and Jesse Lanier, episode 84. They are 3 guys that I really enjoyed interviewing. And if you're interested in the topic of masterminds, they all talk about masterminds and the benefit of connecting with others. The reason why I started this podcast is so that you, the real estate professional or the aspiring person that's just trying to grow in personal development, can listen in to conversations that I have had forever over coffee, over lunch with several people that I really respect. And now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, hey, let's record this. Let's get on Zoom and let's go ahead and discuss with, a bunch of people listening. So enjoy any of those episodes, our past 3, again, episode 84 through 86, 3 guys that I really respect, Rick, Ryan, and Jesse. And I would also ask for a huge favor, a 5-star review, real quick. We don't talk about this a lot. I do talk about it in other episodes. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts is a huge deal. We are out on Apple Podcasts. We're out on YouTube. We're out on Spotify. But Apple Podcasts is the area that I'm really focused in on growing this network. So if you can give us a 5-star review, great. The other thing that I would just love personally is if you snapshot or screenshot an episode that you're listening to and post it out to Instagram or Facebook, that would mean the world to me. I know there's a lot of you out there that are listening, that are enjoying it. We get your emails. We've been loving getting your emails, and we're sending out books to the people who've been emailing us. If you would just send that screenshot out to social media whenever you're listening to an episode, just say, listen to this, and it meant a huge deal to me. That's going to mean the world to myself, to Kayla Davis, and to the cast of thousands, all the people who have been interviewed, as well as the people that are listening. So without further ado, top producer panel coming from Keller Williams DTC, Malnati out. Enjoy.
I would like to introduce the three. We had Elaine Susie who's going to be here today, but something came up last minute. So you guys are stuck with three dudes. Interviewed by a fourth dude. This is a really good group. So I'm just going to have them come up and have a seat, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So if you guys would please welcome Kyle Malnati, Corey Martin, and all right, so we're going to have some fun today. I've got some questions that I didn't tell these guys I was going to ask.
Oh, good.
Don't mimic. It'll be fine. But I think what you're really going to get is you're going to see that we've got three really great business people running three different businesses, three different ways. And I wanted to have them be able to share what's working for them, what they do, how all that works, to give you guys some insight, and then we'll have some time for some questions and answers before the next group comes in and uses this room. So, Parker, let's start with you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in real estate,
Sure.
all that kind of fun stuff.
Well, my name is Parker Loveless. I've been in real estate really since 2015, and I started my career right here at this office, and then I'm now at Kentwood Real Estate.
But you're only good because of us.
I'm
I want to be very clear.
I got all of my systems set up for this office.
All right.
And so, you've been in business for, again, how long?
Really, since 2015 was my first full year as a full-time broker, not working at any restaurant on the side or anything like that.
Awesome. And you grew up in Iowa?
I grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Moved out here in 2006. Came out here because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And until I got into real estate, I really had no path. And I think real estate really helped me change as a person. We've had a couple kids now. And it's just really helped me think differently than what I did before I got into something that I could actually see myself being comfortable and decent at.
Awesome. How about you?
Hi everybody, my name is Kyle Malnati. Today's my first day in real estate. Starting as a buyer's agent today. But all kidding aside, I actually just hit my 15th year in the business. I'm 37 years old, which means I started when basically I graduated from college with a degree in finance. I have specialized for 15 years in the sale of apartment buildings in central Denver neighborhoods. So that's where I got my core business started, and that's evolved into a leasing division that we have at the company I started in 2016 called Calibrate Real Estate. My wife Courtney and I are high school sweethearts. We've got 3 kids that my friends affectionately call Irish triplets because they were all born within the span of 16 months. And we're out of diapers now, and so those kids are in elementary school. We've got 2 third graders, the twins are third graders, and we've got a 4th grader. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Corey.
I'm Corey Martin. I have been in this office since birth. I started back in 2002, I believe. So it's been a while. I started Pammy, and I go way back, right, Tony? So I've been here the whole time. Yeah, basically, yeah. I had a lot more hair. It wasn't gray. I was still this short. Yeah, so I'm a single agent. I don't have a team.
TC.
Or TC, which we'll talk about probably. Somebody will ask it. But what else do I really about me?
Trish, kids.
Oh, Trish, kids. I forgot about. So I'm married. I've got 2 kids. My wife does not work in my business. She would kill me. I thought about that a long time ago, but there's no way that's going to happen. McKenna's 13, and then Landon's 7. So, and I was born and raised in Denver. My parents live. I could walk to their house in Heritage Place right there. So where this building is at, I used to ride little ATV motorcycles because none of this was here. So it's kind of funny that
Cool. So Parker, tell us a little bit about your business. Where does it come from? How did you start it? What's that look like?
Sure. So right now, my business right now is about 60-40 sellers, 40% buyers. And for me, and I don't know how I ended up doing it like this, but it just worked. All of my leads come from internet-based leads. I have 3 buyer systems that I currently pay for and 2 seller lead systems that I currently pay for. The reason I find it convenient to utilize internet-based leads is because every lead system that I pay for, I make sure it has an app. I'm always busy doing something, whether it's golf lessons with my kids or ballet with my daughter. I'm doing something. And when you get a lead on your phone, right then and there, I can take a split moment to say, I can either call them to really qualify or disqualify the lead, or if they come through with a phone number and an email, I'll email them right there in real time. Thank you for reaching out. I'll be with you in about 60 minutes, and I'll call you then. But the benefit of doing that is that I don't have to really take all my time off of my kids or whatever it is that I'm doing to try and generate business, because I paid for a system that does it for me. And when I do make that phone call right there, I have mentally kind of a list of questions that I ask to either qualify or disqualify that specific buyer or seller. But then I can update it right there on my phone. I can hit save. I can set a to do. And from there, I can either plan on getting them in touch with a lender, or I can start running comparables if I set a listing appointment. So it's really, for me, it's internet. And from there, it's cold calling. And I make so many calls a day. I have a very strict routine that I follow, simply because I realize if I don't follow a certain routine, that 30 days, 60 days from now, I may say, oh my gosh, I don't have a closing, or I don't have something under contract. So to have a good system in place, especially when it comes, if your business is cold calling, you just have to stay consistent. For my business, showing up is the hardest, but yet the easiest thing to do. And if you can show up and do the work and make the calls, there's no way that you won't generate business. And that's kind of what my business is based on. It's just internet leads.
It's interesting, and the interesting thing about that is you started as a buyer's agent.
I did.
So you were flooded with leads and had to qualify those. You had to really sift through those and work through those. So that hasn't really changed as you've gone out on your own. Those skills have gotten better.
I feel like they've gotten better. I literally took what I learned from HomeSmiths and kind of applied it at Kentwood. And I even have Kentwood agents that have been in the business 10, 20 years come to me and say, how do you stay so busy? And I don't want to sound cocky, but they say you make it look so easy, and it's like you don't even want to know what I got to do to get these deals.
Right.
You know, but a lot of it comes from expired listings, or when another agent, drops the ball. It's just being in the right place at the right time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about you? Just kind of a snapshot of what that looks like for you.
Sure. My business, I've been a classic geographic farmer for 15 years. I started off as an assistant, what a lot of people call a TC or transaction manager. So I started on the bottom rung, wanted to learn everything backward and forward for a high-producing brokerage team. And that was a family relationship. It was my wife's cousin that I was working for, and so wasn't direct like next of kin, but someone that I really trusted that was a high producer. And my business is a lot of mail that's now evolved into email. So I think the biggest source of leads for us is we position ourselves as the local expert in our niche, and that local area is largely from downtown Denver south to DU, and from Broadway till about Monaco. That's the biggest concentration of apartment buildings. For our apartment market, that's where we kind of get started with things. And we do quarterly mailers, we do postcards, and a lot of the old-fashioned things that a lot of people are going away from because it costs money and you have to do it with a lot of consistency. So that's the foundation of my business, has been geographic farming. Out of that has sprung a really interesting second part of our business, which is relationship and referral through people that we've sold apartment buildings for that are saying, hey, look, my kid wants to buy their first house, their first condo. And so we've had the birth of this residential division within my company that has been really by necessity, because a lot of people have said, look, we trust you. We know that you're very hands-on, very white glove service. You're not going to send us to someone outside of your office to manage our transactions, all handled within house. So a lot of our stuff is really old-fashioned, but we really believe that if you can be the center of the transaction and really help your client achieve their goal, and our mission is to help people achieve generational wealth through real estate. That's really what we're here to do in our company. And so a lot of it is really just simple blocking and tackling, but we just do it consistently and we do it really well.
Great. So my business is almost all referral business. So in my start, so I've been on my own now. You're just kind of asking. I think I started off I was on the Keller team for 9 years. So became very good at converting leads. That's pretty much what I became, very, very good at converting leads. And the one thing that any lead that came in, everybody knows my story about my big thick binder. I would never if you were breathing, you stayed with me forever. Okay, so I stayed in touch with you. And So when I went on my own, I just continued that. I've never paid Zillow $1. I've never paid marketing. I mean, mine is all referral business. And I do that, and my business is 50% listings, 50%, generally every year, 50-50 listings and buyers. But I just, the way that I've structured my business and the way that the way that I structure my day is allowed me to do that, where I don't feel like I need to go to the Zillow route or anything like. Nothing wrong with that. It's just the route I've perfected is my relationships with my clients, and it's through my database and just my routine that I've done for now, however many years since 2002.
I think the one thing that I want to point out with that is Corey, and I got to observe this. Corey is relentless, right? I will never forget sitting there, and he's talking to this internet lead that does not want to talk to him. It's clear, right? She's trying to get off the phone. And she was like, you know what, Corey? He's like, hey, it's Corey Mark again from Keller Williams. I talked to you last month. And she goes, you know, Corey, it's not a really good time. I'm trying to get dinner ready. You can hear the kids screaming in the background. He goes, oh, what's for dinner? And she says, we're having fried chicken and this and this. And Corey takes these notes. And literally, he gets off the phone. And when he called her again the next time, he said, how are the kids? The last time I talked to you, you're having fried chicken and green beans. And the lady, like, completely opened up. Right? Corey, he's just relentless in having those conversations and building that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, just the referral part, every client of mine is just, we become close. I mean, I think a lot of you guys know that. Even, I mean, you guys know that too. I mean, we spend a lot of time with people doing the biggest thing they usually generally buy. But if you really pay attention, there's a lot of things you can pick up on that just will, I mean, solidify that relationship for years and years to come. And I've just become a very good, I'm an old school, everybody knows, I have a day timer. I don't put anything in my cell phone. I mean, it's pretty pathetic, but I have a literally handwritten day timer. So I mean, I'm a very old school kind of guy.
Okay.
I don't feel that old, but
Easy to
right. So, but I thought, my binder that switched over to a database, and we'll talk about that.
Well, we are going to talk about that a little bit because we're going to talk about technology too. And I think the perception and the thought is that we have to completely throw ourselves into tech, right? I believe that technology is going to play a role, and I think a year from now, you guys are not going to recognize the real estate space because of that. However, you can close 40 million in volume and close 73 units doing it that way. And my point with that is everybody has a system. You just have to work your system. And I think as real estate agents, we get really caught in shiny object syndrome, right? Instead of best practices, we start doing other practices. So what's working for her, now I'm going to try that because what I'm doing isn't working for me. Right? And so we bounce around from this to that to that. So Corey, let me ask you a question. Where's your pain right now? Where's your pain in your business right now?
Honestly, my pain on a smaller level is legitimately pricing homes. I'll be totally honest. That is a struggle that I've just felt like the last year has been hard on me. I mean, I'll fully admit it. I think I'm pretty good at selling houses, but having these conversations with market changes and just literally, I've had some listings that have sold where I was completely off, in my initial thought, and they didn't really know that. I mean, because we figured it out, but I still was kind of like, wow, do I know what I'm doing still, right? I'm going to question that. So that, on that part of it, I would say that level. On a bigger level, just doing the volume that I do, and I get questions all the time, Corey, how come you haven't grown? What do you need with this? And I've started to figure out what would be helpful for me. And I've started to work on that. A little bit of showing help on certain parts of town are hard for me as an individual agent, that kind of thing. But to touch on the technology side, that's one thing that I don't, it's obviously I don't put anything in my phone, but other than contacts, but that's something that I'm gearing towards for next year. I'm working on a little different. Like I actually did our Instagram marketing thing here, which has been great, to be honest with you, because I don't really post a lot on that kind of stuff. So that technology, while I want to embrace it, I still think there's a balance, and we'll talk about that because I really, the shiny object thing is a thing I see realtors do all the time. This guy's doing it this way, I'm going to jump on that. I'm going to do that. I am literally an example of if you literally stay the course on one thing that you do well at, it will work. You just got to be patient. And you just legitimate. And we're all very indifferent. I mean, we all have different business things, but it works. I mean,
I see that a lot, and that's a lot. It comes up a lot when I'm coaching agents too. Is stop comparing your insights to everybody else's outsides. It looks really good over there, and I have people say that all the time. They're like, I want to be like so and so. I'm like, really? Because they did 40 million and they made 800,000 in GCI and they didn't make any money, right? So as realtors, we get really caught up in what it should look like instead of being focused on who we are and where we're going. Right. Al, how about you? Where's your pain right now?
Pain points have always been throughout my career with a relationship where you press too hard into something and really tarnished a relationship with someone because you were trying to hit some sort of objective, or you really wanted to press hard into just something that was very important to you. And sometimes I can become so goal-oriented that I forget, like, it's probably more important to back up a little bit. So I would say just overall, if there's anything, and I try not to live with a whole lot of regrets, but it's been relationships that haven't gone so well, and I'm a big part of that. It's not, those aren't those people doing something to me, it's just, things not working out. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that sticks with us as far as a pain point. Right now, as far as a pain point, literally has been space for my organization. So we started in 2016 in a humble 800 square foot office. Pretty quickly within the first year, we're able to acquire the office next door, which is the same space. So we're now in 1,600 square feet for 10 of us that come to the office every single day. And so that's, for any of you that have ever done office leasing or space searches, the rule of thumb is about 150 square feet per person. It's pretty comfortable. And so there were like 5 or 6 of us at one point in 800 square feet. It's pretty tiny. And so we are moving to a new corporate headquarters in December. And we're excited about that, but I'm scared half to death about it too because it's a big move. It comes with a personal guarantee, as most leases do, and so we'll double again from 1,600 to 3,000 square feet, and that's going to include tenant improvements and just a lot of responsibility. So I think probably my biggest pain point as a leader is now that we've eclipsed the 10 people on our team, and our boutique brokerage firm, which is owned by myself and my wife, is very similar to what you'd have as a team lead within Keller Williams. I mean, we're swift and nimble, and we're trying to help people out. And I'm a tactical person that's going to listing appointments, and it is. I would say that the biggest issue that we're having right now is just finding enough space and making sure that it's cohesive for everybody. And we feel like we're going to solve that, but that's a big responsibility on my shoulders right now.
Kyle.
Yeah.
I have extra space.
Yes.
And
There you go.
no, if you turn the word goal and you're talking about leaning hard into people sometimes,
Yeah.
into the word commitment, it'll never happen again.
Good.
It'll never happen again. That's just one of I know you. I know how that people to you.
Pam's been a fantastic mentor for me throughout my
I
career.
like these 3 guys. They're just really good.
Yeah, you guys are really, really lucky to spend a lot of time with her. It feels like constantly coming to a fountain with purified water every time I talk to Pam.
Parker, where's your pain?
My thing that I deal with right now, which is something that some people may say is so simple, is follow-up. And the reason I say that is because I have an issue, I don't know why in my head, to call my past clients, even though it was a beautiful, smooth transaction, to ask for their referral. I don't know why I can't do that. I don't know if it's I just get lazy about it. But when I get up and I start my day, I have a very, like I said, strategic day planning of calling certain people, buyers and sellers and my expires. And by the time 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock hits, or if I get home from an appointment, I just don't want to call anybody anymore. And it's the easiest thing to do is to pick up and say, hey, how you doing? How's the house? Any referrals, anybody you know looking to buy or sell, and yet I don't. And then I find out 6 months later, they sold. And it's like, dang it, if I would have just stayed in front of them, that could have been another transaction. Even though it was a beautiful transaction, if you don't stay in front of your clientele, no matter how good of a friend you are with them, it's like they just forget. Not that it was anything bad.
It's the Gary Keller used this analogy not very long ago. He said, if you walk into Nordstrom's and you walk in, what's the first thing they ask you? How can I help you? And you're usually kind of like, I'm fine, I'm just looking. Then you go in and you find something that you like and you want to try it on. What do you do next? You find the closest person that's going to get you into the dressing room. You're not the person that met you up there. And your business is the same way. When you're not reaching out and you're not in front of them, when they have a need and something comes up and you haven't been in a relationship in that touch, they're going to go to the first person they can get to, right? And so follow-up for everybody, I think, in our industry is tough. I saw a stat that made me want to throw up yesterday. Did you realize that if you take 5 listings a year, you are in the top 10% of listing agents in the United States? 5.
Wow.
So here's the perspective. That's gross in itself, but now I want you to imagine how hyper intensive and competitive is it now in that 10%. Right? So follow-up becomes everything.
It's everything.
comes to that. So let's talk about time a little bit before we switch to technology. Kyle, how do you manage your time? What's your day look like on a typical day?
Well, I would say that the actual tactical part of managing my time is through Google Calendar. My wife and I'll send appointments to each other. Our team knows that if they're not inviting me to an appointment that I'm supposed to be at, I'm not going there. And so we have a really simple system of here's the address of the property you're going to, or here's the buyer appointment, and in parentheses it's the name of the teammate that's going there. So people can throw stuff on my calendar if they want me to know that just to be aware of it, but generally it's through Google Calendar. And then the other part of it too is I really try to focus in on what's most important for my family first. This Stephen Covey stuff, put the most important things in your schedule first. And that looks a lot like going to church on Sunday. It looks a lot like making sure I get 3 to 4 workouts a week. And in a heavy season, I don't know about you guys, and probably a lot of it has to do with interest rates and just people getting out of that July vacation funk, and kids are back to school. But my phone has been ringing off the hook the last 2 weeks. And so I always feel a little bit ragged if I'm not reading something, if I'm not running or working out, and if not spending time in my faith. And so if I can kind of get those things connected, and then quite a bit of backyard time with my wife and kids, that's most important, and everything else fills itself in. From a team lead standpoint, every Monday I have a one-on-one with my sales manager, who is a TC on steroids, or super strength TC. She runs the entire sales part of our company, all the due diligence, all of the title review, ordering surveys, doing the whole thing for every single person in our company. So I have a meeting with her, I have a meeting with my business manager or office manager. The sales manager's name is Anna, the business manager, office manager's name is Kayla. So I have a one-on-one with them typically for about 30 minutes, and we have a manager's meeting with all of us together. And so the one-on-ones are private time where they say, Kyle, I need you to do this, or I need to get this from you, or the signature, or whatever. And those are typically Mondays. Wednesdays we do training, and I train all of our associate brokers that have been at the company for less than a year, which right now is a class of 6. Our senior agents don't need that, but every now and again they'll need me to come to an appointment, and that's more ad hoc. And we have one-on-ones with all of those agents that are in the Wednesday class on Mondays and on Fridays in 20-minute mini sessions. And I say, you've got to bring to me one thing, and it's kind of the certificate of attendance, is you've got to bring to me a 1-page sheet with your 10 most probable deals moving forward. And also it shows some of the metrics of how many calls have you made, how many contacts you've made with principals, how many listing appointments did you have this week. And it doesn't have to say a lot on it, but you have to at least attempt to fill it out. And almost every single one of them in those meetings say, how am I going to get 10, especially when they're first starting? And I said, well, the idea of 10 is to stretch you to understand that you've got to have this constant refilling of your funnel. And some of these people might just be a flyer that you just met at the pool, or some of them may be a networking event, but if you think you've got to fill out 10, you're going to do a lot better job of getting 10 than 5. So that's kind of what my schedule looks like.
Awesome. Corey, what's your day look like?
So I'm a big believer that if your personal life is in pretty decent shape, usually your business is, or they kind of bleed into each other a little bit. So I've always been I'm a morning person. So I get up anywhere between 4:30 and 5 almost every day. And then the one thing that I've always done for me is I go to the gym. I also went to a military college, so it's a little messed up. So I got messed up right out of high school. But mornings are super important for me. And I mean, if you can become a morning person, I think it's a big deal. You can accomplish a lot before people ever even stir in the morning. So usually I get up, walk the dogs, then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll get back in time to eat breakfast with my daughter, who I drive to school. I take my kids to school. It's one thing I don't ever miss unless I'm taking a trip or something like that. So I'll go home. My daughter gets up. She's in middle school, so I'll take her. So we'll hang out and have fun, do all that kind of fun stuff. Then when I get back, Landon's up and ready. And then I'll hang out, have breakfast with Landon. I'll drive him and the neighbor kids to school. So I'm like the bus driver for the little neighborhood, which is kind of fun. And then I start my day. Now I work at home too, and I found that that's over the years has been helpful for me personally. Everybody has their different thing. I'm just a chatty kind of Kathy kind of guy. So if I'm here, every time I'm here, I leave like 2.5, 3 hours later. So I end up working at home a lot. And for me, that's great because then I have, during the summers, my kids are home, so I have lunch with them. I'll hang out, or I'm out chilling. I can have some family time, but also work. For me, that works, okay? So basically my day though, I don't have, and this is what's a little different than in running my own business and not managing people, is I can be somewhat flexible. And I found that that's really helpful for me with the volume of business that I'm doing. It's hard for me to say, hey, at 9 o'clock I'm gonna do just calls, because I might have an inspection objection that that's the only time my client wants to go over. So I have certain tasks that I do, and they're not many, but they're tasks I do every day. And I've always said I don't go to bed when I'm tired, I go to bed when I'm done. Okay, so whether that's 10 o'clock at night or midnight or 1, I mean, I've had those nights, and I'll do them. But there are tasks that I do. One is I always make those calls to past clients. We were talking about my book. There is hardly a day that's gone by that I don't make a call to past clients. It's like the lifeblood of my business. It always has been and always will be. So I literally, whether it's in the morning or whatever, whether that's 5 calls or 10, and this is where our databases will tell you what to do every day. Mine just shows up every day and call these 5 people. And I used to do 10, and I had to tone that down a tad bit. That's a lot. Okay, so 5 is my number every day. 5 contacts to past clients. But I'll do that any certain time during the day. Just it's not set. Problem I found, I tried to set up my day so that it would be structured, but there's too many calls. As an individual agent, I got to stop to grab this, because I found if I do grab that, take care of that, that's more business, right? I prioritize. So I'll definitely take care of that. That's the one thing that I'll definitely do throughout the day. And then I'm trying to think about, usually, obviously, my showings are scattered throughout, but I'll do those in the evening. This is where a showing assistant, I do have somebody up north that's a Keller Williams agent that I found reliable, that when I want to have one showing in Broomfield, because it's horrible to get through Denver anymore. I mean, it's so different than it was 5 years ago. So I found that to be helpful on that aspect. But literally, the majority of my day is either spent working on deals, okay, that I currently have, and I work all day. I mean, working at home, some people can't do it. I literally work all day in my office. I mean, I'll go outside, I'll do different stuff. I'll run to Costco to go get groceries for an hour. I'll take my breaks, but I literally work all day. But it's not structured. I just have my tasks, and we can go over those. But what I do every day, just my basic, those things that I don't deviate from.
But the thing about that is they get done
every day. They legitimately do. And I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, that's that military college side of me, the Corey side that people just, I just do it. I have to. I don't feel right going to turn on the TV if I haven't made those calls. I punish myself. I mean, I'm my worst, critic, I guess.
Well, that's how lead generation's become a habit for you, right? I mean, it's kind of like those people that have that habit of going to the gym. When you're not going to the gym, you don't feel good about what's going on. Something feels wrong. Something isn't right?
Yeah, and the gym, and I'm a firm believer in working out. I mean, I'll throw that out there. Whether you do it in the morning, evening, or night, guys, you have one life, one body. I mean, your mind is so much better if you stay healthy. Whether that's eating right or working out. I mean, I feel awful just trying to take a day off working out in the morning. I just don't feel right. But I'm telling you, the morning you can do it's great. I mean, if anybody else work out in the morning, it's awesome. You just jump right into the day. They sleep better at night too, I think. Tired.
Parker, how about you? What's your day look like?
So my day starts at 7 a.m., getting my son up, getting him ready for school, and I take him there, drop him off at 7:45. I'm back at the house on the phone by 8, calling expires from the night before. That can take anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. Right after that, I take my daughter to her school, come back, and I'm back on the phone calling my expires again. But I have, the way that the system's set up, you can call expires from months ago, right? And I usually start with January, February, March, and I just keep repeating it. And I can usually get through a month in about 4 days. And then after that, I will call my buyers, and then I'm off to my appointments. After my appointments, I pick up my kid, and then I come back home, and I'm back on the phones trying to set more appointments. So when I say that everything comes from cold calling in my business, it's cold calling to everybody. Anybody and everybody that wants to buy or sell real estate, I'm probably going to do my best to talk to you.
Awesome. Yeah. Good. So let's shift a little bit and let's talk about let's talk about technology first, and we'll talk about the market. So everything that's going on right now in our industry with technology, agents are bombarded, right? With this system, with that system, with where we're going, all of that. I'm curious as to what kind of impact technology currently has on your business, and where you think it's going, or how are you going to use it going forward? Anybody want to just jump in on that?
Has anybody been in the room here circa 95, 2000, started as a realtor at that time? Okay, a couple people. I will tell you, technology is a beautiful thing. DocuSign, CTME contracts, however you do it. I mean, 2004 is not a long time ago when I started. Faxed offers, signing listing agreements on the hood of your car, sitting down and presenting to every single person, kneecap to kneecap. I mean, a lot of my business is done very efficiently now. So I think for as much as people are scared of some of the looming technological issues, our lives and our businesses are able to expand a lot more than they were 20 years ago. Now, that also makes it as a much easier barrier to entry, or less of a barrier to entry, I should say. So there's some concern that obviously you can just, with a laptop and some grit and tenacity and also some efficiency, you can make an impact in this business pretty quickly. So I think that if you look at technology as a tool instead of the solution to everything, I mean, we are still, and I wrote this down in the notes because I knew that this question was coming up, and I've had a lot of discussions with realtors. I've also had this thought myself, and have had it affirmed to me. As long as people need a CPA, a therapist, a doctor, they're going to need realtors because it's a very complicated, complex transaction that happens infrequently. And yes, do people use TurboTax? Absolutely. Do people look up issues, symptoms on WebMD? Absolutely. Do people try to watch, some sort of pop psychology program? Of course. But if you position yourself as a market expert, there will be a point where someone says, you know what, this is too big of a decision for me to wing this or to use someone I don't know and that doesn't understand the marketplace. So absolutely, technology is something to be aware of, but look at it as a tool, sort of like a brick. You can build a house or a hospital with a brick, or you can throw it through a window and cause some pain. But the brick doesn't decide whether it's good or bad. The person using it does. So I think that's the way I look at technology.
I remember when I got into business in 2001. In fact, there's 4 of them sitting in my office because people think I was lying. But we had the MLS book. Yeah, that's how we found property in 2001. Right, and look at how quickly we've changed and kind of what's happened. Right. So, Corey, what are your thoughts on technology?
I will say one of the best things ever is CTM. I will say. I mean, I tell people that's my favorite piece of invented software in the real estate world. I love that thing. You said it really, really well because technology, I think, again, there's always, every month there seems like there's something new or some new app that you can use or this can position you here, and I can't keep, track of it all, but I think that when you use technology to help you where you need it, right, when you individually, again, going back to, we're all individuals here, and our clients, our clients pick us because of that in a lot of ways, right? But I think if you pick this technology and not just jump on the next latest and greatest, but you find the thing that maybe you're weak in, that technology will help you in, is what I think that's where that can really help us. It's not that you have to have this, because again, for me personally, it's just so hard to keep up with all these different stuff, but there are certain things that you can, that are out there that will help you. But I think on an individual level, so that's where I think it can be super beneficial. And again, just talking on the individual agent level, if you can find that weak spot that you have, but that technology and it's out there, it's just that can help enhance your. I was talking to somebody the other day. I think I was talking to Bev. I actually asked her about her open house. She was marketing her open house, and she had a really cool little Facebook. It was a neat little video thing or whatever. I was like, geez, that's cool. So I actually emailed her, I'm like, how do you do it? She's like, hey, it's an app. And I'm like, okay, all right. So, and I'm like, can I do it on a computer? I'm an idiot.
I figured that out.
Yeah, okay, good. So, but anyway, so it's stuff like that. So I think while technology, because I am not the most, we all know that, but I'm open to it. But and there's things, you can grab out there that you can. It's just make sure it's for you, the right thing. You're not just doing it because it's the latest and greatest thing to do. Again, that's my.
Arthur, how about you?
Well, since being in real estate since only in 2015, I really don't know one way to sell real estate, and that's through digital advertising technology. And I think it's a great benefit, and I always tell my sellers, even though technology can help me sell this property for you, I'm in the business of making a relationship. And I don't know how an Instagram post or how a Facebook post can sit there and do my job simply because they may have, to use it for the advantage is one thing, but to use it as a relationship, I don't think it's really there.
I think it's there to enhance the relationship.
Right.
It can't replace that relationship, right? Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing too, where technology gets difficult for agents is, and when I'm coaching agents, I see this a lot. I've got my database and outbound engine, and I use Canva for brochures, and I use this for this, and I use this for this, and that's where we start to see that kind of spread the real estate agent then. And so now their focus is trying to manage all these platforms, which is kind of why KW built Command, right? To put everything into one ecosystem so that it's there. So I guess my question is, do you guys feel like you have a lot of different products and a lot of different things you use that are all in different systems, or do they talk to each other and are they pretty well managed?
Mine's definitely different systems, but not a lot of them, right? I mean, mine's a pretty simplified system, but on a level on like his level, I could see where you probably want something that's all connected. Like I could imagine that.
Yeah, so my answer to that is being a broker owner and employing broker, my system is my people, because there are a lot of different technologies that are better for doing brochures, that aren't super great for doing postcards, and I would say that that's probably the biggest thing, is that we really focus on hiring great talent. I know Keller Williams is big, obviously into that mindset, and so the system is the people and the technology. There's going to be different adaptations to each of those technologies, and what we were doing 4 years ago with email marketing has changed today, and it will change in 3 years. It's the people that are still pushing go on it that I think is important.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So talk to me a little bit about one thing that you've been focused on this year in 2019. Something that maybe it was a goal, maybe it was just something that your focus was kind of shifted this year from previous years, and what's that look like?
Oh, sure. One thing that I really focused on this year, I think it's something that I focus on every single year, and I want to make good money, and I want to make sure I can support my family, and that's one thing that I always focus on, and I feel like to have that to be my clear big rock, everything else will fall into place if I focus on something like that, because nothing will stand in the way of me being able to be a good dad, a good supporter, and yet having a great lifestyle for kind of what we want to do for what my family and I are going for. So it's always focusing on my family, and I think everything else will kind of come into place if I do that stage early.
That's awesome. Yeah. How about you?
I'm going to dovetail on what Parker just said, and just kind of share a specific story. So real estate is a very personal industry, and so I'm going to give you a very personal, specific situation that I've been working on in 2019. So it started towards the end of 2018. I had some relational issues within my organization. Some of it was necessary, where for us to grow, I needed to end a partnership, and we had a real important, and Pam knows exactly what I'm talking about, a very intentional kind of unwinding and a very long exit ramp with a certain partner that I was working with. And that partner still works in our organization, so I feel like that's a success. Towards the end of the year, that it basically unwound, so we're about fall of last year. And I started to just be very mindful of the fact that while I didn't think I had a problem, I knew that I was sort of out of control in the amount of alcohol I was drinking. And I'm not trying to be a downer for happy hour later today, but in October, I had to sit down with my wife, and then a separate sit down with my therapist, and then connectivity with both of them, where I just said, look, I don't think that I have a substance abuse issue, but I know that I am kind of hoarding a lot of my stress by drinking. And that was the big thing for me. And it was, a drink or two, kind of happy hour in the backyard, or, oh my gosh, we had a busy day today, let's have a glass of wine. Like, that's constantly the conversation in our business. So in October, I said, you know what, I'm going to go for as long as I can and just kind of see how this feels. And went, about 2 weeks without drinking, and was like, this is feeling really good. My mentality is changing. And I said, but at the same time, I do enjoy, social happy hour, enjoy time, just kind of breaking bread and celebrating. And so I said, well, what if maybe I just kind of control this a little bit? And so for the past, August is the 8th month of the year, so it's been now 10 months straight, I kind of have figured out this little game with myself. And so the mental game of making sure that I am as sharp as I can be is I give myself, just like you want on maybe a good diet or a workout plan, a couple of cheat days. And so my goal is 20 days a month of no drinking. And I've done it consistently every single month since October. And the result, because we're in a results-based industry, is at some point in July, I surpassed my annual commissions earned in July. And my wife said, "You may never drink again." So that's kind of like, I recognized that something was an issue for me. And so I just want to make sure everybody has a different level, a different struggle, a different vice. And for me, I realized that was limiting my potential. Now, the positive side of it also is that we had amassed enough gross commission income that my wife and I bought a dream property in Grand Lake that we are planning on building a lakefront home on. And so that was something that was a dream that was manifested that I wrote down years ago that happened on March 20th of this year. So pretty cool stuff. And, you know, it causes a bunch of strange conversations at, you know, neighborhood get-togethers and whatever, but generally it's working really well for me and it's helped me stay sharp. So
It's interesting. Well, you focus on expanse, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Corey, how about you?
Well, I guess on a personal side, so I love to fly fish. That's my thing. That's how I get away from it all because nobody can call me on the river. So that's kind of my thing. So one thing that I decided this year is, and I actually wrote it down, and I've said this before when people have heard me talk, but I don't do a lot of business goals. I do a lot more personal goals because I feel like and again, I'm very hard on myself. So if I'm accomplishing my personal goals, that means I'm doing my business goals. Does that make sense? So for me, if I feel good about going on a trip, like tomorrow I need to go for 4 days up near Walden to go fly fish and do all that. And I feel really good about leaving because I've got everything in order. I'm good to go, the whole 9 yards. So I feel good about doing that. But that'll be my like 35th day on fishing this year, which is pretty good with the volume that I do. So people are always like, "Do you ever take time off?" And yeah, I do. But I set that goal personally, so I work harder because I know I want that goal. I really enjoy my fishing. That's my break time, right? So that's something that so far I'm really good doing that on this year. But then it goes back to from a business goal this year for me, again, goes back to what I mentioned earlier, was becoming a better home price or evaluator on properties. Now, with the market the way it is and the way it's gone up and everybody thinks it's more than this and that, that's just one thing that I've been working on. And I've been doing some things on the side with that just to try to help. I just want to feel more confident in those situations. So even after all these years, I still, I want to get better at it, So
What do you guys think? I'm curious as to what you guys think as to what our biggest challenges in industry is right now. What do you see as the biggest challenge in our industry today?
One thing that's bothered me maybe over the last few years, and I maybe brought up, is with as good as Denver's been the last several years, we've had a lot of people come in. I know I've got countless clients now that are real estate agents, which is great. I must have made it look really fun. I got to get them down right now, and they're actually closing some deals, which is good. So that's nice. But I've dealt with this a lot. I really think that these transactions that we do between the other agent is a big deal. Like Parker and I have done a couple deals, which is funny. But I'm a big fan of the relationship you have with the other real estate agent. Okay, that's one thing that I've become and I always have been. I mean, we treat them with respect. I really do. I have an issue with anybody, but that makes a big deal. But I've noticed over the ease of entry concerns me a little bit, and I'm just, I've been vocal about it to some degree. I think it's inexpensive for what we do and what we provide, which is pretty much the largest financial investment most people make. I mean, most people have more in their home than they do in their retirement, okay? But yet those guys have gone through countless hours, and even appraisers, the amount of hours they have to do. So I'm bothered by that to some degree because I think that, we always had that conversation where we're your real estate agent. Everybody's a real estate agent, I look at Facebook. I mean, if you ever, with the hilarious thing, if you're on Nextdoor, somebody says, "Hey, does anybody know a good real estate agent?" It's like 700 pages long. And I'm like, it's disgusting. I mean, I hate to say it. So does that make sense? My concern is I would really like to make our profession that much more professional, like where people really value what we do instead of trying to hammer us with our commissions. Because as the market's gotten, where it was easier per se to sell something, I say that lightly, but you know what I mean? It was, homes would maybe sell a little quicker. It was easy for somebody to do that, and then all of a sudden now they're talking about commissions, right? And we all work very hard for what we do, and they don't see the inner workings of it. But so my challenge with this is I would love to see the industry tighten up somehow, whether it's we increase dues, and I know nobody likes that, but let's weed out some of the stuff that doesn't belong, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think that's,
you know what I mean?
I think that's.
But I think we've all
everybody
dealt with
feels
it, we've
the
all
same
dealt
way.
with it on deals.
I think most people feel the same way.
Yeah, I want to answer that. I want people to be like, you're an real estate agent. I mean, a very successful one, and not just like a, car salesman, which we sometimes get, right? I think what we do is
Two things have to happen. And Gary Keller had this conversation not very long ago, and he said it's nothing that a shift won't fix. Right? Because as soon as the market shifts, we're gonna get rid of people. If you look at the stats, I looked at the stats yesterday. NAR made the announcement that applications in the NAR are down 30%. Right, so it's starting to show up. You look at what's happening in Seattle. Seattle is the very first market that went backwards in appreciation, right? And it just happened last month, right? So we'll have some of those things coming. So there's two ways to do it. Either a shift can induce that and make that happen. Gary fully believes that NAR will be cut in half in the next 10 years with the number of members. And so it's either that or we have to up our standards. If we upped our standards, if we upped, if MLS was triple or quadruple what it is for you guys to belong to, that would do it for us. Yeah, it would bring back the standards that we had. How about you?
My issue, or the issue that I think impacts our industry, so I'll probably answer it two ways. The first is at Calibrate, our mission is we exist to help people create generational wealth through real estate. I think that realtors do a really poor job of planning for retirement. And I think that that's something I'm passionate about. One of the reasons why I'm very connected to people like Pam and Tony and others in the room is that I've been the friendly commercial real estate broker that's happy to explain our industry to you. I'm a realtor. I wear the red R, and I'm part of several realtor organizations. And I think that a lot of people in our profession don't do a very good job of understanding that you're a local market expert and you can use that to your advantage. In the financial services world, it's called insider trading. You'd get strung up on that from the SEC, but we have the ability to do that here in our market. And so the second part that I'll say of that particular answer is that every market that I work in or I have friends in that are outside of Colorado is not the same, obviously. And so Denver tends to be a very much appreciation-oriented market. There's a lot of other areas in the United States that are more cash flow-oriented markets, and you need to know which market you're investing in. It's sort of like trying to shoot for a target. If you try to hit both targets, you're going to miss both, right? So you might shoot for appreciation and get cash flow along the way as a nice blessing or surprise. Vice versa, you might be shooting for cash flow and get some appreciation along the way, but usually people fail when they try to get both. So I would say that the biggest thing for me is helping realtors, helping other people. Obviously, my clients are not all realtors, but that would be the big thing. And then I think in some of the real estate networks that I'm involved in where I work with realtors, I think some of the infighting with MLSs, some of the legislative stuff, I grow really weary of those discussions, and I think that that's a huge distraction to what we're supposed to be doing, which is helping our clients. And I think that as a trade organization, we are very much trying to protect our intellectual property, and I understand that, but I think it's a big distraction to what the end goal is, which is helping our clients.
For me, I have two ways that I want to kind of explain from the seller and a buyer standpoint, because for me, when I've been going on listing appointments, what I do to prepare for a listing appointment is very intense. I preview homes in the area before I go to the appointment. I do all my numbers. I find out days on average days on market, the price point, and I go over there and I really pour my soul and my knowledge into the presentation. And if whatever my price number I say to them does not match Zillow or Realtor.com, it's an uphill battle in the beginning because they looked at that number before I called them or they called me. On a buyer side point, they always ask me, Parker, what are rates doing? Is it a good time to get in the market? Should I wait? Should I buy? And the market, everyone's trying to time the market. And I don't think the market is ever going to be guaranteed. But in my opinion, what is going to be guaranteed is that if you don't buy, you may never catch it. And that's something that I consistently tell the buyers every time because they always tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you buy right now? And the answer always is, yeah, I would. If you can make the payment and you can make it work, you can buy. Real estate for me is like a stock. It's something that requires consistency and patience. And if you can do that, your consistency will prevail. If you sell at the right time, you'll make a little bit of money and you can continue on to your bigger goals in life. Just like stocks.
Well, and I think the challenge right now is our audience and our consumer base is drawn. Oh, that's wrong. Right? Because appreciation has done this, and so their expectations of what they think is realistic in any market is so far out there, and that's a battle you're always fighting, whether it's Zillow or Realtor.com or just their drunk monkey as to what they believe they should get. I mean, they're using those words. I should get that. Wow, the market doesn't really care what you want. The market is the
Or
market.
the other thing, Tony, is that they think to explain to them that houses going up all the time is not necessarily a good thing.
Right. They don't understand that, right? So, quick question, and then we'll start wrapping up here in a little bit. If you had to start over, what would you do differently? There's one thing, if you had to start over, what would you do differently?
I'm glad you're asking this question. So for those of you that don't know, I have a podcast on iTunes called the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. We are going to hit our 100th episode this November. It's done every single week, and I interview influencers across the nation that are involved in the real estate business. Sometimes it's folks that are associated with real estate investing, but most of the times it's top producers and realtors. So the benefit of doing that is you go through what Tony's going through and you say, what do I ask these top producers? How can I distill some knowledge to then share it with everybody? And the way we end every single show is it's this concept of Dear Younger Me. If you could write yourself a letter now that you're a little bit older to your younger self, what advice would you give? And the way I've coined it is it's the advice you wish you knew when you were 22. I would say that the most common answer to that question from all of our guests is I wouldn't do anything different. I would say that if they then think about it, they say, I'm definitely here as a product of what I've done. And I could have done a couple of things different here or there, but almost always if they really, really dig into it after those first couple of answers of I wouldn't do anything and I'm definitely a product of what I've done, and if they're successful, they're okay with it. It almost always comes down to some sort of regret financially. They got in over their heads before the recession, and the recession exposed that. That's usually the biggest issue, and so I would say that for me, while I definitely had to struggle and work my way out of it, I had a lot of consumer debt coming out of college, and part of it was because I was bootstrapping it, and my parents were very supportive of me, but financially I had to work my way through college, and there's part of that was deserved. I wasn't getting good grades, and they're like, hey, the gravy train's over. The other part of it too is just like you have this income creep, you get a little bit of money, you start buying stuff, and so I would say that for me, I wish that I would have become in tune more financial responsibility. For a guy with a degree in finance, I kind of understood it from a macro level. But I think a lot of us kind of wade into debt, and you just sort of like all of a sudden realize you're there, and you look up and you've got X amount or whatever in student loans and car loans and all this other stuff. And so my birthday is later this week, but in 2014, I paid off my house, and including all of this other consumer debt before that. And the way I did that was by going through a class called Financial Peace University. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with that. And so I would say that for me, I wish I knew that curriculum earlier and younger. And then the other part of it too is just I would say stay in your lane. That's the other thing. And that's been a lot of the conversation is people start to chase different stuff and just stick to a plan, do something really, really well, whatever that is that it's authentically you. It's got to be something you believe in, because otherwise it'll fall flat and won't be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey, how about you?
I wish I would have started real estate earlier. You know what I mean? Like now looking back, if there was, if I could have another 10 years.
Well, I'm gonna expose you here for a second. So I'll never forget that when I first hired Corey was working 2 other jobs.
Oh,
He was
that's right.
valeting at night and doing something else. And he said to me, am I gonna, he said, I can't just jump into real estate because Corey's financially very conservative and wanted to make sure he was okay. And there came a point, probably 6 months into it, I said, Corey, here's the deal. I love you. You're going to be great, but you either have to quit your other job and do this full time, or I have to let you go on the team. And he said, fine, I'll do it. And you came to me 2 months later, and he's like, dude, why didn't you do that 8 months ago? The best thing, right?
Yeah, it was pretty. I mean, that's a touching point. I would say, yeah. I mean, one thing, just burn. What do they tell you? If you want to take the island, burn the ships, right?
Yep.
Just go all in. You got nothing to lose. I mean, that financial freedom part, like you're talking about. I mean, you pound away. The market's been great. Work the hours. I mean, there's plenty of it out there.
Is there anything else you would do if you had to start over? Anything you would do differently?
Anything?
That you can think of?
I will say this. This is kind of I farm. I'm a firm believer in farms, just on a simple level. I wish I would have started that a while back, or a little while, as soon as I got into real estate, decided on the area and never deviated from it. And I haven't. I mean, my farm is phenomenal. I will just say that it's phenomenal. You can make a farm work. It's just bonus money all year long is the way I look at it. So anyway, that's just my little tidbit. Just start it early. If you haven't done one, you should start one and just stick with it.
Awesome. Parker, how about you?
I would definitely piggyback on what both of them said. Having a farm is something that I don't have, and when I see all these for sale signs in my neighborhood go up, it's like, I know him. He knows my name. But yet I didn't take time to go knock on the door. But to change anything in the past that I've done, I mean, yeah, sure, I should have made that extra phone call, should have knocked on that door, but I'm in a very happy, pleasant place right now with myself and with my family, and I feel like you gotta have those bad days to appreciate the good days, and you gotta have those good days to appreciate the bad. For example, this morning, I called literally over 200 people. I talked to about 30 people, and I haven't set one appointment, not one. But you gotta appreciate those days, because tomorrow I may call 7 and set 6. Because that's just kind of how it is. It's all about that consistency. But to change anything to where I am today, I don't know if I really would. I don't think I would change or wish something would have been different, because I don't know, I feel very good. I feel very proud, and I'm very happy, and I don't look back and say, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I would have maybe knocked on that extra door and made that call, but those are small wins.
The one thing that I admire about the three of these guys is that their family comes first, and that they're very centered into what's important to them. They all run phenomenal businesses, but those businesses support their families and their life goals and what they want to do versus the other way around. And most realtors have that the other way around. Most realtors are living to work instead of working to live. And I've admired that about the three of you guys. You guys have always been that way, which I think is awesome. Last question, and then we'll take a couple questions from these guys. So based on what you've seen over these last couple of years and where we are, where do you see the Denver market going in the next 12 to 24 months? What do you feel in your gut?
So I'm trying to figure that out, because that's the question I get all the time. It's hard. I think on different price levels. I've got a client right now that's $7 to $10 million, Terry Hill's kind of guy, right? And he is adamant that things are just tanky, right? And he's got a ton of money. But then I talk to somebody else who's really high up at Schwab, and they're like, hey, it's just a little correction, right? So when I'm going to these people, and I'm like, well, you're saying this, and you've got a boatload, and you're in it. So I don't really know. All I know, my personal belief is that I think that we're coming out of this little summer lull that we had, like you're saying, people's phones are starting to ring. I'm starting to pick that up. I noticed that on some of my showings that are stagnant. I think we're sort of mellowing. But I still think Denver's not going anywhere. In my personal, honest belief, I think we're totally fine for several more years for sure. So that's my honest gut feeling. I don't think we're going to see a dip, but I do think we're leveling. That's my gut, but I could be totally off that. That's my gut.
What do you see in the commercial side and the multifamily side?
So, and I'll talk about a lot of commercial real estate, and then I'll say multifamily, and then I do a fair bit of relationship referral and residential. So, so commercial real estate, I think for Denver, a really positive thing that's happened in the past 3 decades is that Denver has done a really good job of diversifying its economy. In the 80s, and a lot of us that were here heard about the 80s, we really were negatively impacted by a recession because of lack of diversification. A lot of it was heavy oil and gas and minerals, and Denver has done a very good job of attracting other businesses to really. I remember seeing this when I first got into my career, and I've seen it continue to grow. Is that as you look at just a pie chart of where the industry comes from in the metro area, I think that we've got a really good diverse economy, which is great. So I think that commercial real estate is affected by some of those vices that people are attracted to Colorado by. We've got good craft beer, and we've got legal marijuana, and we were one of the first adopters of the legalizing marijuana. And so, for better or for worse, that's what we are known. If you travel across the U.S. and you say you're from Denver, people go, "Oh, we got marijuana, Rocky Mountain High, right?" Or craft beer or whatever. And so, a lot of the people that are attracted to Denver are attracted by those things, and you start to see that happen in our cities. I think that from a multifamily perspective, and as I look at my deal flow and just what affects our bottom line, I think that we are not only drunk on appreciation, but definitely drunk on interest rates. And I think there's a lot of people, you will see just little mini blips. And for me, my business really slowed down to a screeching halt in November of 2016 and did not pick back up. And this is a few years ago, of course, but did not pick up until late in the spring. I'm talking like May of that spring because of the presidential election. And this is not political. It's just that our business in multifamily real estate, but then also just in general in financial services, if you look at real estate as a part of financial services, it is very dependent on interest rates. And there's a lot of people who are not used to seeing a 6% interest rate, let alone a 7, 8, or 9 or whatever. And so I think without getting into a huge economic discussion, I think that our financial policies and the way that monetary policy is handled is going to affect our industry. And what that does to apartments is a lot of our apartments are based on cap rates. And a good rule of thumb, this doesn't work for every market, but Denver has been very consistent with this throughout my career, is that if you're interested in what the prevailing cap rate should be in the Denver metro area, specifically getting really close into the core, wherever your interest rate is, your cap rate in Denver, the city and county of Denver, is going to be about 100 to 125 basis points above what that interest rate is. So 4% interest rates, we're in a 5 cap market. And for certain trophy assets, and just for those of you that may, because I have a lot of clients that own a lot of real estate that still ask what a cap rate is, so it's not a bad thing to ask. Cap rate is just simply your income minus your expenses, using no debt in the equation, because everybody has a different ability to get debt. So you get an NOI, net operating income from that, and you divide that into your purchase price. It's a really synonymous way of just saying what's your rate of return if you own the building all cash. That would be your rate of return every year. And so cap rates are really important because it's a way of measuring what the market's doing. And so as interest rates go up, that means that cap rates also have to go up, which means values are going down, unless income goes up at the same time. So I think in the multifamily market, that's a really big issue, that we've been on these really low interest rates, and that's going to be some interesting thing as interest rates will naturally rise. And then as far as residential real estate, I think that there's big misconceptions in the market on what is actually going on, and I just hear this in neighborhood barbecues and dad get-togethers and swim team stuff where inventory, if I can speak, inventory shortages are the reason why the real estate market's still hot and this and that. I'm like, there's not an inventory shortage. I think that I personally have seen that we're seeing a lot more property stay on the market for longer. We're seeing more days on market, more price reductions, and I think a lot of you're just kind of average observers of the real estate market don't get that, don't see it. And so when you sit down for a listing presentation, someone might all of a sudden think that their property is still appreciating, and it very much is not. So I think that would be what I'd say just about Denver here in the next 18 months is interest rates and then market perception are probably going to be 2 big things to just watch for.
If you ask me personally, I think Denver is very strong. I think the economic growth here is very strong. It's still growing. So I think the market should stay consistent. But when I talk to you guys as a broker, if you do what you say you're going to do for your work every day and you make your calls and you do your follow-up, I think even through any type of recession, you should still be able to sell real estate and do your jobs, because when you stay true to your systems, I don't think they're going to fail you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I think I agree with everything that you guys said, and I think when people ask me that question, I generally tell them I think we're going to be where we've been. However, if you don't take an opportunity to build a moat around your business now, you're going to get sideswiped when we hit the presidential election. Make no mistake, the country is headed toward a recession. You saw what the administration did today, right? Started looking at how can they start stimulating the economy because they could see that it's stalling. They've been predicting a recession in 2019 for a while. We're due for one. We're overdue for one, right? It's not healthy to continue what we've been doing. Is it going to be big? Who knows? Is it going to be small? Who knows? My point is, when you wrap recession and presidential election into the same season, consumers get quiet and they pull back, right? And they're looking for somebody. That's why I will tell you it has never been more important for you guys to understand the market, to know your numbers, to be able to articulate that and tell the story. And that may lead to flushing some of these people out of our industry that can't do that when things get a little bit hard. So I think you've got massive opportunity if you can do that and build a moat around your business with your numbers, your story, and being able to articulate that.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
This is something I share with a lot of agents that are frustrated or just new to the business. Over my 15-year career, and that's a short period of time in the grand scheme of things, I have observed that real estate agents, realtors, real estate professionals make money when the market's going up and make money when the market's going down. Be really careful of those times where you have troughs at the bottom or you've got a peak at the top, because a lot of your clients and people that are casually observing the market are going to say, things are great right now, aren't you doing great? And actually when the market starts to kind of stall as it goes into the next position of the cycle, that's when it's time to be really, really worried and batten down the hatches just from a production standpoint. But I am looking forward to a recession because people are going to need you even more at that point. I know that Keller talks about shift, and that's a big part of it. But just remember that we've been in this very steady upward cycle and double-digit appreciation depending on the neighborhood you're selling in. And I'm excited for the market to change because it will continue to reward professional realtors that stick